3 minutes ago, the palace released a confirmation so quietly worded, yet so emotionally heavy, that it has left royal watchers stunned and deeply unsettled. For years, Princess Charlotte has been seen as the bright, confident symbol of the monarchy's future, poised, fearless, and seemingly untouched by the pressures that once weighed so heavily on earlier generations. But today, that image shifted. According to newly confirmed palace guidance, a decision has been made regarding Princess Charlotte's future role, one that insiders describe as necessary, protective, and heartbreakingly unavoidable. While the statement avoided dramatic language, those familiar with royal protocol immediately understood the weight behind it. This was not a routine adjustment. This was a course correction, one shaped by history, responsibility, and lessons learned the hard way. Behind the palace walls, concerns have been growing for years. Concerns about expectations, about visibility, about the emotional cost placed on young royals who grow up under relentless public scrutiny. And now, with the monarchy entering a fragile new era, the institution appears to have reached a difficult conclusion about how Princess Charlotte's path must differ from what many once assumed. What exactly has been confirmed? Why does this decision matter so profoundly for the future of the royal family? And what does it reveal about the monarchy's fears, priorities, and unspoken regrets? Tonight, we uncover the truth behind the palace's confirmation and why this moment may quietly reshape Princess Charlotte's destiny forever. The palace's confirmation arrived without fanfare, but its implications landed with unmistakable force. Tucked into a carefully phrased briefing meant to sound procedural rather than personal, the message was clear to those who know how to read royal language. A definitive decision has been made about Princess Charlotte's future, and it is not the one many had quietly hoped for. While the statement avoided dramatic phrasing, insiders immediately recognized the tone cautious, restrained, and tinged with the kind of regret that only comes from hard-earned lessons. For years, Princess Charlotte has occupied a unique position within the royal hierarchy. As the only daughter of the Prince and Princess of Wales, she stands at the crossroads of tradition and reform. She's not the direct heir, yet she is too prominent to ever be considered peripheral. From her earliest public appearances, Charlotte displayed a confidence that captivated the nation. She walked with composure, waved with precision, and corrected her brothers when protocol demanded it, all before she could properly read. To many observers, she appeared destined for a central, highly visible role in the monarchy's future. But visibility, the palace has learned, comes at a cost. According to palace sources, discussions surrounding Charlotte's long-term path have been ongoing for several years, intensifying as Prince William assumed greater responsibility and as the monarchy reflected more openly on the pressures placed upon younger royals. The tragic experiences of previous spares individuals, born close to the throne but never meant to inherit it, loomed heavily over these conversations. History has not been kind to those caught between duty and identity, expectation and autonomy. And the palace, now painfully aware of that pattern, appears determined not to repeat it. The confirmation centers on a strategic shift. Princess Charlotte will not be groomed for the same level of lifelong public duty once assumed inevitable for a royal of her position. Instead, her future role will be deliberately limited, controlled, and shaped around personal choice rather than institutional demand. While she will remain a visible member of the royal family during key occasions, the palace has confirmed that there will be no expectation for her to become a full-time working royal in adulthood unless she explicitly chooses that path herself for an institution built on tradition. This is a quiet but profound change. Behind closed doors, senior advisors reportedly framed the decision as protective rather than restrictive. They pointed to the intense scrutiny faced by young royals in the digital age, a scrutiny that follows them into schools, friendships, and eventually adulthood. Every expression is analyzed, every misstep magnified. And for a child growing up under that microscope, the emotional toll can be devastating. The palace, having witnessed the long-term consequences of such pressure within its own family, concluded that Charlotte's well-being must take precedence over symbolic expectation. The word tragic, used by commentators, does not refer to loss in the traditional sense, but to the quiet mourning of a path once imagined. Many royal watchers had envisioned Charlotte as a future powerhouse, a modern princess balancing duty with charisma, much like her great-aunt once did. The confirmation signals that this vision will not be imposed. And while that choice may be healthier, it also acknowledges a painful truth. The monarchy no longer believes it can safely demand that level of sacrifice from its youngest members. Prince William and Catherine are said to have played a central role in shaping this outcome. Both are acutely aware of what it means to grow up under relentless attention.
And both have been determined to shield their children from the worst of it.
Catherine, in particular, has long advocated for mental and emotional health, especially in children. Sources suggest she pushed firmly for a future where Charlotte could pursue education, interests, and a private identity without the burden of being molded into a public figure before she understands the weight of that. The palace confirmation also subtly redefines Charlotte's position within the line of succession. While her constitutional place remains unchanged, the expectations surrounding her contribution to the monarchy have been recalibrated. She will not be positioned as a backup pillar, nor quietly trained to compensate for potential instability elsewhere. Instead, the institution is acknowledging that continuity does not require uniform sacrifice from every member. Still, the emotional response has been complex. Among traditionalists, there is concern that the monarchy is retreating, that it is shrinking its visible core in response to modern pressures. Others see the move as an overdue evolution, one that prioritizes humanity over optics. And for many, there is a sense of sadness tied to what this decision represents, an admission that the crown, in its current form, can be unforgiving to those born into its orbit. Within the palace, the confirmation has been described as both necessary and sobering. Necessary because the alternative risked repeating history. Sobering because it forces the institution to confront its limitations. Princess Charlotte's future, once assumed to be scripted by tradition, is now deliberately unwritten. As Britain absorbs this news, one thing becomes clear. The monarchy is changing not through grand announcements, but through quiet corrections. And in choosing to protect Princess Charlotte's future rather than define it, the palace has revealed both its deepest fears and its most cautious hopes. Behind the palace's carefully measured confirmation lies a story shaped by fear, memory, and lessons learned too late. The decision regarding Princess Charlotte's future was not made suddenly, nor was it driven by a single concern. Instead, it emerged from years of quiet observation, internal debate, and an uncomfortable reckoning with the monarchy's own past. What the palace finally acknowledged, though never stated outright, is that history has left scars too, deep to dismiss. For generations, royal tradition treated younger heirs as structural supports for the crown. They were expected to serve, to appear, to sacrifice, and to remain steadfast regardless of personal cost. Their identities were shaped early, their choices limited before they fully understood what had been taken from them. While this model once ensured stability, it also produced patterns of resentment, isolation, and emotional collapse. Patterns. The palace can no longer deny. Senior royal aides have privately admitted that the experiences of previous spares became impossible to ignore when discussions about Charlotte intensified. The pressures faced by those born close to the throne, yet destined never to wear the crown, have often been quietly devastating. Raised with duty but denied purpose, visibility without authority, privilege without autonomy, it is a position that history has shown to be uniquely vulnerable. And in recent years, the consequences of that vulnerability have played out on a global stage. The palace watched as personal struggles turned into public crises, as private pain became international spectacle, as generational tension spilled into interviews, books, and documentaries. These events forced the institution to confront a painful reality. The traditional royal blueprint no longer protects those who live under it. In fact, in the modern media landscape, it may do the opposite. Princess Charlotte, advisors realized, is growing up in a world far more intrusive than anything previous generations faced. Cameras are no longer confined to formal events. Commentary no longer waits for adulthood. Social media has erased the boundary between public duty and private existence. A single image, a single gesture can be dissected endlessly, often stripped of context or compassion. For a child, particularly one who already commands attention by virtue of her position, this environment poses risks the palace is no longer willing to gamble. With Dot, another critical factor was Charlotte's unique role within her immediate family. As the only daughter between two brothers, she occupies a psychologically delicate space. She is close enough to the line of succession to carry immense symbolic weight, yet far enough from it to face questions about relevance, comparison, and expectation. Palace experts in child development and psychological welfare reportedly raised concerns that this combination could create internal conflict as she matures, pressure to perform without clarity about why. Prince William's influence in these discussions was pivotal. Having lived his entire life under public scrutiny, he understands the cost of duty more intimately than most. He has witnessed the toll it can take not only on individuals but on families. Sources suggest that William was deeply unsettled by the idea of Charlotte being molded into a role she did not choose, particularly after witnessing the long-term effects of unresolved pressure within the royal family. His position was firm. Continuity must not come at the expense of emotional well-being. Catherine's perspective added another layer of urgency. Known for her focus on early childhood development, she has long emphasized the importance of autonomy, emotional safety, and identity formation. Those close to her say she questioned whether the monarchy had truly evolved enough to protect a young girl growing up under constant observation. For her, the answer was no, not yet. And until it is, Charlotte's exposure must be limited by design, not circumstance. The palace also considered public perception. While Charlotte is widely adored, adoration can be a double-edged sword. Popularity creates expectation, and expectation invites entitlement. There was growing concern that the public might begin to project future roles onto Charlotte, crafting narratives she would be forced to either fulfill or disappoint. By clarifying her path early, or rather, by refusing to define it, the palace aims to dismantle those projections before they harden into demands. Internally, this shift was not without resistance. Traditionalists argued that reducing Charlotte's future visibility could weaken the monarchy's public presence. They warned that stepping back from established roles signals retreat rather than resilience. But those arguments ultimately fell short against a sobering truth. Public visibility is no longer synonymous with public support. In an age of relentless scrutiny, visibility can amplify vulnerability rather than authority. The final reasoning behind the palace's confirmation rests on a quiet but transformative belief that survival of the monarchy depends not on how much it demands from its youngest members, but on how carefully it protects them. Princess Charlotte's future, once viewed as a strategic asset, is now regarded as a personal journey that must remain flexible, protected, and largely free from obligation. This realization did not come easily. It required the palace to admit that tradition, while powerful, is not infallible. That legacy can be preserved without repeating its mistakes, and that strength sometimes lies in restraint rather than display. As a result, the confirmation issued today is less about limitation and more about prevention. Prevention of resentment. Prevention of identity loss. Prevention of another generation carrying burdens they never consented to bear. And in making this decision, the palace has quietly acknowledged something it has rarely admitted before, that the cost of maintaining the crown has at times been too high, and that Princess Charlotte will not be asked to pay it by default. As the implications of the palace's confirmation settle in, attention is turning away from the mechanics of the decision and toward its deeper meaning. This moment is not just about Princess Charlotte as an individual. It represents a quiet but decisive turning point for the monarchy itself. By redefining her future, the institution has revealed how profoundly its priorities are shifting, and how uncertain it has become about the path ahead. Princess Charlotte is growing up at a time when the monarchy is being re-examined from every angle. Public trust is no longer guaranteed by tradition alone. Younger generations question relevance, transparency, and purpose, while older generations worry about continuity and stability. In this fragile environment, Charlotte's role had the potential to become symbolic, either as a reassuring bridge between eras or as a reminder of unresolved tensions. The palace's decision removes that symbolic weight from her shoulders. But in doing so, it also reshapes the monarchy's long-term structure. One immediate consequence is the narrowing of the monarchy's visible core. With Princess Charlotte no longer positioned as a future full-time working royal by default, The institution becomes increasingly reliant on fewer individuals to carry public responsibility. This concentration of duty raises difficult questions about sustainability. Can a streamlined royal family maintain the same level of national and international engagement? Or does this shift signal an acceptance that the monarchy must become smaller, quieter, and more selective in how it presents itself? For Charlotte herself, the confirmation creates both freedom and ambiguity. She is no longer bound by an unspoken expectation to serve from adulthood onward, but that freedom comes with uncertainty. Unlike past generations, whose paths were largely predetermined, Charlotte's future will be shaped gradually, influenced by her interests, education, and personal resilience. While this approach prioritizes her well-being, it also means she will grow up aware that choice, rather than obligation, defines her role. That awareness can be empowering, but it can also be isolating within an institution built on inherited duty. There's also the question of identity. Princess Charlotte has already been introduced to the public as a figure of confidence and composure. Many see echoes of strength and discipline in her demeanor, traits historically associated with strong royal figures. As expectations recede, she may face the challenge of reconciling public perception with private reality. The palace's decision seeks to give her space to define herself beyond symbolism, but public memory is persistent. The world will continue to watch even as the institution insists it will not demand. Within royal circles, this decision is being interpreted as a protective line drawn in response to past fractures. It acknowledges that unresolved tension within the family has had consequences not only for public image, but for institutional stability. By limiting Charlotte's future obligations, the palace is attempting to break a cycle, one where emotional strain accumulates quietly until it erupts publicly. Whether this approach succeeds depends not on policy, but on how consistently it is upheld as she grows older. The broader monarchy must now confront what this choice implies for the next generation beyond Charlotte. If personal choice becomes the guiding principle rather than automatic service, the institution may need to redefine what loyalty and contribution look like. Traditional expectations, attendance, patronages, ceremonial roles may give way to more flexible forms of engagement. This evolution could help preserve relevance, but it also risks diluting the clarity that once defined royal duty. Public reaction to the confirmation has been mixed, reflecting the nation's own uncertainty. Some view the decision as compassionate and overdue, applauding the palace for placing a child's welfare above spectacle. Others worry it signals retreat, suggesting the monarchy is quietly conceding that its traditional structure can no longer withstand modern pressures. Both interpretations carry truth. The palace is not abandoning tradition outright, but it is no longer willing to enforce it without question. For Prince William and Catherine, the path forward involves a delicate balance. They must raise Charlotte in a way that honors her heritage without allowing it to dominate her sense of self. They must prepare her for public attention while insisting she is not defined by it. And they must support an institution that depends on continuity while challenging the assumptions that once governed it. This is a burden unlike any faced by previous generations because the margin for error has grown vanishingly small. Ultimately, this moment underscores a sobering realization. The monarchy's greatest challenge is no longer external criticism, but internal adaptation. It must evolve without losing legitimacy, modernize without erasing identity, and protect its members without appearing fragile. Princess Charlotte's future has become the lens through which all these tensions are now viewed. The palace's confirmation may have been brief, but its significance will unfold over decades. It marks the beginning of a quieter, more cautious era. One where the monarchy measures success not by visibility alone, but by sustainability. And at the center of that shift stands Princess Charlotte, no longer a symbol of expectation, but a reminder that the crown's future depends as much on restraint as it does on tradition. In choosing this path, the palace has acknowledged something profound, that the survival of the institution may hinge not on how tightly it holds its youngest members, but on how gently it allows them to grow. As this story reaches its final stage, it becomes clear that the palace's confirmation about Princess Charlotte is not an isolated decision, but a moment of reckoning, one that forces the monarchy to confront its own limits. What appears on the surface as a protective measure for a young princess is In reality, an admission that the institution has reached a threshold it can no longer ignore. The crown, once defined by certainty and permanence, is now learning how to live with restraint. For centuries, the monarchy's strength lay in its predictability. Roles were inherited, expectations were clear, and sacrifice was considered inseparable from privilege. That model endured wars, political upheaval, and cultural transformation. But the modern era has introduced a new kind of pressure, one that does not wait patiently, does not respect privacy, and does not fade with time. It documents, critiques, amplifies, and judges in real time. And the monarchy, despite its centuries of adaptation, has struggled to shield its youngest members from this relentless exposure. Princess Charlotte's future has become the point at which those struggles can no longer be dismissed as abstract concerns. The palace's decision reflects an understanding that the emotional cost of royal life is no longer theoretical. It is measurable, it is visible, and it has already reshaped the family in ways that cannot be undone. The confirmation issued today does not speak of loss, yet it carries the weight of past regrets rooted in the belief that endurance alone was enough. Within the institution, there is a growing awareness that survival now depends on discernment. Not every tradition must be preserved in its original form. Not every role must be filled by obligation. And not every royal child can be expected to absorb the full force of public scrutiny without consequence. Princess Charlotte's path has been altered not because she is weak, but because the institution recognizes that strength has been demanded too freely in the past. This moment also exposes the monarchy's quiet fear that public devotion is no longer unconditional. The crown must now earn its legitimacy not only through ceremony, but through compassion. By choosing to limit Charlotte's future obligations, the palace is signaling that it understands how closely public trust is tied to humanity. The image of a protected child resonates more deeply today than the image of unwavering duty once did. At the same time, the decision raises difficult questions about what the monarchy will look like a generation from now. A smaller, more selective royal family may be easier to protect, but it also concentrates responsibility in fewer hands. This shift demands extraordinary resilience from those who remain at the center. It also requires the public to adjust its expectations, to accept that visibility will be reduced, access will be limited, and continuity will look different than it once did. For Princess Charlotte, the significance of this decision may not be fully understood for years. She will grow up knowing that her future was deliberately left open, that her identity was not pre-written by institution alone. That freedom may become her greatest inheritance. Yet it also places her in a unique position, belonging to the monarchy, but not bound to it in the same way previous generations were. Navigating that balance will require guidance, patience, and an unwavering commitment to protecting her autonomy as she matures. The palace, meanwhile, must live with the consequences of its choice. Every future decision involving royal children will now be measured against this moment. The precedent has been set. The question is no longer whether the monarchy can demand sacrifice, but whether it should. That shift marks a fundamental change in philosophy, one that prioritizes longevity over rigidity, and care over control. As night falls and the headlines begin to quiet, the true impact of today's confirmation starts to crystallize. This was not a tragedy defined by loss, but by restraint. A recognition that some paths, once considered essential, now carry risks too great to justify. The monarchy has not withdrawn from its role in national life, but it has acknowledged that its future depends on evolving how that role is lived. In choosing to protect Princess Charlotte's future rather than script it, the palace has revealed a monarchy learning from its own history, cautiously, imperfectly, but with intention. This decision will not end debate, nor will it silence critics or reassure all supporters. But it marks a moment of honesty, one where the crown admits that tradition alone is no longer enough, and in that admission lies the quiet truth of this story. The future of the monarchy will be shaped not only by crowns and ceremonies, but by the choices it makes to safeguard those born into its shadow. Princess Charlotte's altered path is not a sign of decline. It is a signal that the institution is finally listening to the lessons it once ignored,